Hello, class. We are now on to chapter two, which is about the totality of decisions. With any good compensation strategy, obviously, there are so many factors that go into how we decide how we're going to structure the compensation system for our company or organization. Our strategic perspective focuses on the compensation choices that help the organization gain and sustain competitive advantage. Our compensation strategy doesn't operate in a bubble, so to speak. We have to align it with whatever our company or organization is doing from an external perspective. So, for pure example, if you look at Exhibit 2.3, we tailor our compensation system to our strategy. So your book talks about three different ways we could do that. So if our company is what we call an innovator, something that is really pushing the boundaries of innovation and strategic focus, maybe our compensation strategy is tied to that, where we don't just pay everybody a flat salary and be done. Maybe we pay them a little bit of salary, but we also give them great bonuses for achieving certain goals. And then we give them stock options, and then we give them, incentive pay and referral pay. And we'll talk about all those as we go along throughout the semester. But again, we could be really innovative and first rate with our compensation strategy. Where a second option, we could be a cost cutter, where I'll say unfortunately, but maybe we just pay the bare minimum. A Walmart is a great example of a cost cutter. I mean, obviously, if you've ever shopped at Walmart, prices are usually a little bit lower than some other places you could go, and that's how they've made their marketing. But they also follow a similar structure on their compensation. I don't want to label Walmart, but Walmart has been known to pay their employees not as high as other similar situated employees in other retail environments. So they don't tend to pay their employees as much, but they save a lot of that money in payroll and benefits and use it in other parts of the business. So that is one example of a cost cutter strategy. And a third focus would be what we call a customer focused strategy, where, all of our focus is on that customer, building long-term relationships, building a belief that, we care about the customer as much as we care about ourselves, and we want to see, that relationship grow. So a lot of times in our payroll systems and compensation systems, when we look at things like, bonuses for hitting sales goals and, commission type pay, where you get a percentage of however much you sell, you get a percentage of that. Well, that's all ties back to a customer focused approach, because obviously in sales, if you don't develop good customer relationships, you probably won't be selling much. So the whole idea, whether you're an innovator, a cost cutter, a customer focused organization, you can tie what your company, focuses on into your compensation strategy. And that's kind of what this whole chapter about the totality of decisions is about. So as we discussed in chapter one, about the pay model, the pay model guides pay decisions, and that's going to be a theme that you're going to see run throughout the semester as the pay model guides pay decisions. So, what forms of compensation should we develop, with our organization? I work in higher education, for example, and I've worked in it for many years now and just love it. I could, probably, given what I do for a living, I could probably go to private industry, in a big, international company, and I could probably, make a little bit more money than I make now. But higher ed as an industry is well known for providing excellent health insurance, really good retirement benefits, a great work-life balance that maybe I wouldn't get in another private organization. So maybe I'm willing to take a little bit less actual take-home pay for my benefits and my long-term retirement. That's a decision that that just works for me. Again, it may not work for you, and everybody's unique, and you should follow whatever approach works best for you. But for me, having a family, that works really well. So so the forms of compensation that organizations give you are dictated by company and organizational strategy. One final exhibit that I want to draw your attention to in chapter two is exhibit 2.5, which is about formulating a total compensation strategy. It's kind of like I don't want to call it a vicious circle, but it's like a life cycle that really goes about. In the first step, you're assessing total compensation implications. So you consider what we just talked about, your company's marketing strategy. Where do you operate? Is it a unionized environment where you have to deal with unions in your compensation strategy? Are you in a heavy regulated industry where the government has a lot of say in how you organize your business? Are you crippled, in bureaucracy and red tape, or are you a startup and have the flexibility to do whatever you want? So those implications really play heavily into it. Then the second step is you map that strategy. So now that you kind of know what you're working with, then you create you create your plan. You figure out, okay, if I'm going to pay this group of employees this way, I'm going to focus my compensation and benefits in this area. You put it all on paper, essentially what you're going to do. Once you have your plan, then the third step is actually implementing that plan. Starting to pay your employees. Figuring out, do they like year-end bonuses? How are the stock options that you give working? Whatever that you mapped out, is it working? And hopefully it does. But if it doesn't, and even if it does, at least your fourth step, which is reassessing and figuring out, okay, do we need to make any changes? We need to go back and reassess and figure out, okay, this works, but this doesn't. Let's continue doing this, but maybe our employees don't like this, so let's refocus this idea. And then you kind of, it's a circle that keeps going over and over again. But the whole idea is that by formulating your total compensation strategy, you're focusing on your employees and figuring out what works for both them and you long term. So again, chapter 2, all about the totality of our decisions, because it'd be great if we could just implement a simple, compensation system and be done with it. But obviously there's so many factors that go into it. And as we go along throughout this semester, you'll see how that totality really affects the decisions that we make. So, all right. Well, thank you, everybody. And I will see you for chapter 3.